What is something you thought was grossly exaggerated until it happened to you? General anesthesia. 3, 2, 1, and suddenly I'm being moved to the recovery room. When I was in high school, I had pneumonia. The hospital I went to first was kind of full of idiots, I guess, because they ran every test down to a spinal tap. The nurse gave me 100 cc's of Demerol and possibly mixed with something else and walked out. It made the walls melt and the ceiling wavy. She came back a couple of minutes later and I was giggling like a schoolgirl. She said, "You're not asleep?" I went to get the doctor. They gave me another 100. It made everything go faster and more fun, and the last thing I remember is her exasperatedly telling me to roll over and close my eyes. I woke up, puked, and was good. My nurse friend tells me I puked because they gave me some meds to actually wake up, and the side effects always include vomit. Apparently, while I was out before giving me the wake-up meds, I was blacked out and talking. My spirit animal is a purple Dumbo because I was told I was having a conversation with him. 10 out of 10, would recommend. I can actually totally relate to this. 10, nothing. 9, nothing. 8, sudden blur. 7, lights out. Story 2. Kidney stones. They're for real. Everyone's been asking for my story, so I was out of the country and on an excursion, if you will, actually when I felt something weird about 3 inches up and to the right of my belly button. I didn't have back pains until later. When I got back into town, the pain had gotten a little worse and I thought nothing of it. The next day I woke up and it was more of a sharp pain, so I went to the local hospital. They did a sono to check me out, spleen, appendix, and whatever else they checked for came back fine. They gave me some Vicodin and sent me on my way. I took these daily and was okay, but every once in a while I took a jolt and nearly brought me to my knees, but then would go away again. Fast forward to coming home, was on the plane back and started having sharp pains, went to the restroom and pissed what looked like cranberry juice. Had a small panic attack and went back to my seat and took the Vicodin. Still had 6 more hours left on the flight, so I was freaking out the whole way home. Back in the States, I went straight to the hospital and they couldn't figure it out. Just told them about the sono and no kidney infection. I could see the concerned look on my doctor's face, so they did a CT scan. And a couple of hours later, my doctor called. "I have good news. It's only kidney stones." My initial reaction then was, what the actual baby Jesus? If that's good news, what did you think was wrong with me? Anyway, the report came back, TMC, too many to count. I had hundreds all over my kidney. And that night it moved and I was laying on the bathroom floor, throwing up and couldn't move because of the pain. I thought I was dying. It was the worst pain I could physically ever be in. My father had to come pick me off the floor and take me to the hospital in the back of his Tahoe. They performed a lithotripsy, which isn't a walk in the park either. I went home that afternoon after passing 3 stones and who knows how many blood clots from the procedure. Since then, I've passed 2 more that were small but still painful. I still don't understand how there's no cure or procedure to prevent that pain. We can do medical work equivalent to miracles on every part of the body. Recently, I got root canals and was amazed how they took out a frickin' nerve in your tooth and you still keep your tooth. But a procedure that would save so much pain and human suffering? Nah, piss glass. Story 3. Getting older, aches and pains, less energy, more responsibilities. Never thought it would happen to me. I thought people who called in sick or whatever when they threw out their backs were sissies. Then I threw out my back. Holy hell, it hurts to do pretty much anything. At the ripe old age of 29, I started throwing my back out 2 to 3 times a year due to a congenital back problem. Thanks, genetics. I still brace myself every time I have to cough or sneeze, whether I'm having a good day or not. There's nothing quite like the hot, stabbing pain that radiates down through your legs and out the bottom of your heels. The other day, I sneezed and suddenly couldn't look to the left for like the whole day. In a similar vein, how much time speeds up as you get older. I'm turning 30 in a few months, and this year felt like it was January, February, April, December. Add the stress of a crushing mortgage and personal loans to the mix, and you're having some fun. I'm still young myself, but sometimes I feel my back hurting too. I probably need to visit a chiropractor. I don't know, having your back corrected and hearing those satisfying cracks seems like a good idea. And also one of my best buds is like 26 and he has gout, so yeah, sucks for him, lol. Story 4. Sleep paralysis. Here are some of my sleep paralysis experiences. The first time it happened to me, I had no clue what was going on, and I remember thinking I was dead, and then I remember trying to scream but couldn't. And the more I struggled to move or to scream, the worse it felt. It's like my eyes were awake, but my brain was still asleep. I couldn't move my body, I couldn't breathe, and the harder I tried to regain my breath, the harder it got to breathe. I know it was pitch black in my room, but it was like everything was strobing colors, like dark, very deep colors, and there was a deep ringing in my ears. It only happened to me once, and it was terrifying. Sometimes I get a noise in my head halfway between radio static and a high pitched ring, and it starts very quiet, like it's coming from another room. But if I think about it or try to pay attention to it, it starts to get louder, and I begin to feel that I no longer have control over my body. Trying to move in any way brings the volume of the static and the ringing up to 11, and I can feel the full body numbness take over. If I realize what's going on, I can unpanic and slowly wake myself up, though. If I panic, my heart rate and breathing go nuts. My girlfriend will wake me up if she notices, but mostly I get a feeling that something is just about to happen, but I can't see what it is. Right before it does happen, I wake up with a jerk, like a falling dream style kind of thing, and then it's over. Sometimes I fall back asleep within minutes and I don't remember it unless my girlfriend tells me the next morning. Usually I'll get up and have a beer to put me back to sleep. Story 5. How hard it really is to just find a job, let alone one that pays for you to have a comfortable life, especially now that you have to apply online everywhere. I was spending at least 15 hours online a week for months, filling out tedious applications while my savings dwindled. One day, my mom says, if you spent as much time looking for a job as you did on the computer, oh man, I lost my freaking mind. I explained it, but to this day, she doesn't get it. Even when I found work, I had 2 jobs where it ended up costing me money to even show up, and I had one where I was just barely breaking even. Not to mention the 20 or so interviews of, we'll call you, and all of that effing BS. Wasting my gas, driving all the way wherever, getting all dressed up, and doing the I'll do everything to get this job dance. Sorry, I think I'm just getting emotional just typing this. I think that our entire educational system needs to be redesigned around making sure no one ever has to say what you just said again. It's pathetic how little my formal education taught me about the real process of finding work, how to interview, how to apply, how to write the right cover letter, how to network, how to interact with bosses, how to prove your worth once you start a job. My job search was very hard as well. I jumped from job to job for 3 years before finally landing one that's got me at least on the right path. Rest assured, if you work hard at your job search and have ambition for yourself, aka you're not going to settle for retail for the rest of your life, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Side note, how am I supposed to find a job when all postings listed for new work has a requirement of at least 2 years experience? SMH. Wait, it gets worse. You'll find out soon that a lot of people that have those jobs are lazy, incompetent people who, for some reason or another, are immune from being fired. Story 6. Putting down a pet. I went through this when my family dog died 8 years ago, 8 years exactly next week. I can't face anyone that day. I still miss her every day. I've got another dog now, and I love her too, but it took me a long time to see it was okay to love her, and that she wasn't replacing my old dog. There was a lot of conflict in my heart because I only wanted her, no other, but living without a dog only magnified the loss because there was a dog-shaped void everywhere I looked around me. After 4 years, I finally decided to get a puppy, and I cried as I brought her home, partly because it felt so good to know I might soon feel complete again, and so painful to think I was being unfair to the puppy by still wanting my old dog. But so far, it's been very worth it. I still miss my old dog, but my puppy, now going on 4 in January, is cuddling me back to back in bed, just radiating warmth and love and reassurance. I want to appreciate every second with her because I know there will be less of them than with most people in my life. So cherish the memories of Link, write down every good memory you have, scan and digitize every old picture, describe how his whiskers twitched or weird position he'd lie down in. Immortalize those memories because they will fade from your mind, but you can always revisit the pictures and the stories. Maybe he'll visit you in your dreams, and you may have other dogs in your life, and you may love them just as much, but that doesn't take anything away from these special, unique memories you have with him. I'm just so sorry, and it kills me when people say stuff like, just a dog. I may sound overly dramatic, but losing my dog shattered me. A best friend is a best friend, and losing one is never easy, no matter who or what they are. I'm comforted knowing I'm not alone in this, and this is the time of year I miss her the most, and any excuse to think of her is a good one, and even if it's a sad feeling. Story 7. Obsessive-compulsive disorder. I remember as a kid watching one of those MTV True Life documentaries about people with OCD and thinking how ridiculous it was. I mean, why can't these people just not wash their hands 50 times a day? Why can't they just lock the door once and be done with it? A few years later, when I was around 16, I started to develop some strange habits. For instance, if I heard even just 1 second of any song on my iPod, I would have to listen to the rest of the song in its entirety, down to the last second. So let's say if said song ended and I didn't get my iPod paused before the next song started, I would then have to listen to that song in its entirety. These were the first signs of horrible things to come. And over the next 5 years or so, my OCD manifested itself into almost every facet of my life in different ways. The compulsions would get more and more complex to the point where I would just spend hours trying to fix it. Life was miserable. Every day was a challenge. I could go on all day about the different compulsions and manifestations, but this is already the longest post I've ever made here. I did get better for the most part. It's not ruining my life anymore, and it's pretty dormant most of the time, but every now and then it creeps up and tries to bite me. I've learned to fight it off pretty well, though. I actually love fixing my stuff, organizing and making things neat. Nothing wrong with that, right? And the only thing I see wrong right now is that you haven't hit that like button and subscribe to my channel yet. If you have, thank you so much for it. And if you haven't, please do. It helps us out. And if you are a little bit OCD about things, why don't you just take a gander at how perfect the symmetry of the buttons are in that subscribe button? Come on now, do it. I know you want to. Click subscribe, and let's go ahead and move on to more of the stories. Story 8. Cyberbullying. In middle school, it wasn't even that big of a deal because hardly anyone kept up with online happenings during those mid-90s dial-up days. I was aware that people would send awful emails to other classmates and harass them, but I didn't think it would hurt that much. Just shrug, pity the pathetic soul that wasted time out of the day to give you a nudge and then delete the message without looking back. Well, I didn't get an email. I got an entire website. Using the student directory, they posted my home address, phone number, and email address. They posted several crap quality images they took of me using those shoddy 320 by 240 digital cameras. I had this whole gallery dedicated to me, showing me at very unattractive angles, eating my lunch, walking down the hallway, and making a scrunchy laughing face. And there was text, so many texts. Just this unbelievably long diatribe about how fat I was, how no girl would ever love me, how everybody makes fun of me, and how much of a worthless piece of carbon-based crap I was. My friends discovered the website when an anonymous email circulated through the student body. They tried to address it to people who weren't in my circle, but some of them did approach me to tell me that this website existed. And that's what gets me. It's a website. He actually purchased and set up his own web domain to host this stuff. And it hurt reading all this stuff. It hurt seeing getting sent to so many people. And while I was grateful to have some friends tell me about it, not everyone did. And nobody tried to assure me the things the website said were completely false. How was I supposed to know people didn't make fun of me or not? Was I really that hated, that toxic, that people would dedicate an entire week stalking me, taking photos, writing articles, and hosting a website exclusively about me? That's what hurts the most about cyberbullying and something that I haven't been able to shake since. Cyberbullying doesn't make the victim feel like a victim. It makes the victim feel like they're a horrible person to everyone else and that the problem is them. So when I hear about people going through quote-unquote all the difficulty of making fake Facebook profiles to bait and snare unsuspecting victims, I'm doubly terrified of the state of today's bullying victims. It's so easy to do now. It happened 2 decades ago to me, and the technology has since only made it easier to make it happen again. The exact timing of this incident wasn't exactly 20 years ago. I was just rounding off to the nearest 10 to keep it simpler, and because I didn't want to do the 3 seconds of math. Story 9. Longtime lurker, finally saw something I can contribute to, being it rather recent. I'd say grief. My grandmother passed away on the 8th of this month. It was very unexpected, seeing as she had survived 2 bouts of cancer and a brain tumor, and met her end due to some goddamn cold. I can still see her in her living room doing aerobics with an instructor and streaming her Hindi serials, or Bangladeshi, on her phone. The last words I said to her were goodbye when I left her house about a week or so before she got admitted to the hospital. Me and her never had a great relationship. It was very rocky, and I was the worst granddaughter I could have been to her. I didn't go visit her before she was already on life support, and to this day, just the mere thought of that rips me apart from limb to limb. The 2 weeks after were some of the worst days of my life. And the thing is, they talk about grief in novels as this perpetual and sudden force that grips you and never lets go. They say it reduces you to this shell of who you once were, and every action and every word becomes a challenge, and suddenly all you feel is anger, but anger at yourself, and this sense of doneness in regards to everything else. Breathing becomes a laborious task, and suddenly you become so aware of all the things around you. Like, I never knew the walls were that shade, and when did I buy those pair of shoes, and why did I never ask her about that, and why this and that, and just why? I always used to think that novels were exaggerating this. I always thought it would never be possible for a person to sink as low as that, and I have never been more wrong. I remember I got pulled out of school early that day, about an hour before it happened. My mother, her ex-daughter-in-law, took me and my brother there, and God, there's nothing worse than knowing it's going to happen and then just waiting for it. The night before, I had gone in and visited her. Just thinking about it makes me want to throw up. Plastic snakes and cotton eyes, the haranguing beeps of the machines that kept her alive. Her hands were just so cold. Someone had braided her hair. It wasn't fair, damn it. And this woman who had been through so much, survived a war, traveled all over the world and written books and just done so much, was reduced to this. Damn, it just wasn't fair. It isn't freaking fair. And all I could say was that I was sorry, and I couldn't even look at her while saying it. I threw up later on, over and over again, until I had nothing left inside of me, and the only things I had for the next 4 days were just 2 cups of coffee and a small sandwich. I felt sick. I felt like a murderer. I lost about 5 kilograms in 4 days, and if there was a God, he was playing deaf that day. At her janaza, it's a Muslim thing where the body is washed and laid out and you pray around it, and it's later followed by more praying at a mosque. They were all telling me to look at her one last time, say goodbye, you'll never see her again, and damn it all, I took 1 2-second glance at the woman who I always thought was bigger than me, even though I was taller. One glance and saw not a human but a doll, and I lost it. It wasn't right, and this wasn't right. She didn't belong there. I ran away, and every breath of mine was akin to that of metal scraping metal. I tried to throw up again, but ironically, I hadn't eaten enough to do so. I wake up every morning with her face behind my eyelids, and I think, oh, but I'll see her again today, but I know I won't. I'm never going to see her again, and I will never, ever get to apologize to her. I am a heartless robot in human skin, and I don't deserve to be here. She does. I'm nothing. What I'm trying to say here is nothing can prepare you for grief. I'd never lost someone this close to me before, and I never thought it would be this hard. I've talked with people, and I laugh, and I make jokes about it and whatnot, but it's just so hard. It's so hard, and I wouldn't wish this feeling on my worst enemy, ever. I feel sick even writing this. Grief is just so terrible, but sadly inevitable. To all of you who have lost somebody, I'm so very sorry for thinking that it hurt less than it did. It hurts so much more, and sadly, there is more to come. Grief is a knife that slips through the covers at night and slices you as you idly watch. 0 out of 10 would not recommend to any living, breathing being, ever. I know this is a throwaway, but some of these comments are so touching and caring and raw, and I want you all to know that I'm grateful that you took the time to read this. Lots of love from this loser in Bangladesh. So this one was a pretty tough read, and I hope all of us kind of learned something and appreciated the courage it took to write out and just expose themselves like this person. And I want to say time heals all wounds, as they say, but nothing ever goes according to plan, and we just all got to keep moving forward. Now, damn, that was a roller coaster ride of stories, and I do hope you enjoyed the video of all of them. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you're also going to enjoy the next one. What's the worst adult tantrum you've ever seen? Story 1 actually reminds me of my brother when he was young. I'll see you in that video, and thank you for watching this one.